Hey friends, welcome back to my series on the Canon M6 Mark II. If you didn't see my first video on how to set up the menu settings on manual mode, I'll go ahead and link that right there. And you can head back after you watch this video and see that one if you want to. I'm going to try to make this one under 8 minutes, so I'm going to cover how to set up your video menu on this one. I talk a little bit faster, there's a lot of crossover between the two, so this one shouldn't take long. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right, when you are ready to shoot in video mode, make sure you change your dial from manual, which is your picture taking, to the video icon. When you flip your camera over, you'll notice that the icon up in this corner shows you that you're on manual mode, video. Hit the menu button. The shooting mode I have set to manual, but if you want to change it, you can go to auto, the manual, or HDR. I stick to manual mode. The movie recording quality, you have some options here. I have mine set to 4K, but you have the ability to shoot in 1080p 60 frames per second, so you can slow it down just a little bit. You still retain the autofocus and face tracking. You can shoot 1080p in 30 frames per second, and again, until you get the firmware update, this will also allow you to shoot in 24 frames per second. This camera also has the ability to shoot in high frame rates, but you have to enable that. You can shoot 120 frames per second, just enable that. And by doing that, you'll be able to shoot 120 frames per second, so you can really slow your footage down, but you lose the ability to phase track and autofocus, and that's where the focus peaking comes in. So I'm gonna go ahead and disable that, and then go back to my 4K shooting. Sound recording, right now it's set on audio, and if you see as I'm talking, the preamps in the camera are clipping at 0. So if you don't shoot with external microphones, you have to be careful with the peaking of your audio. So I'm going to set mine to manual, and as you can tell, I didn't change the volume of my voice, but I'm below 12 now, negative 12 decibels. I'm going to go ahead and raise that up a little bit until as I'm talking, I hit right about 12, and I think I should be good right there. Lens aberration, I believe this all comes default. I don't change anything else on here, but I do want to eventually do a time-lapse video. So really quick, if you get into time-lapse and you enable this, you have 3 different scenes that you can choose from, and this is going to be a different video altogether. This is something that you might want to put onto your favorites screen so you don't have to dig into this menu. But make sure that you enable it before you do a time-lapse, otherwise you're not going to be able to get to it. Camera icon, menu number 2. Nothing on here has changed. Menu number 3, the only thing that I have changed is my picture style. Again, I want to keep everything as flat as possible so I can do something in post. Everything else stays the same. Menu number 4 for the camera icon, I have my autofocus method set to autofocus tracking. Eye detection, autofocus is enabled. Touch and drag settings for autofocus. This is the one where you want to enable it. Set your positioning, so when you touch and drag on the screen, you can set your autofocus point. I have mine set to relative, and as I have this up to my face, my thumb rests on the right hand side of the screen, so that's good for me right there. Nothing else on this screen. So camera icon number 5, manual focus peaking. Again, this is going to be another video that I shoot. I have the peaking on, I have the levels on high, and I've selected red. You can choose red, yellow, or blue, but the objects that I shoot, I notice that red stands out the most. When your camera is in manual focus mode, especially if you're shooting video at a high frame rate and you lose the ability to autofocus, the focus peaking is really good because you have these red highlights that surround your subject, and that way you know that it's in focus. Internal stabilization I have on enabled but not enhanced. Enhanced, it does something weird to the outside corner, so I just keep it on enabled. Nothing else on this menu has changed. Menu number 6, I have movie servo autofocus enabled. Just like the last video, nothing on the playback is changed, so I'm going to go ahead and skip to the Wi-Fi Bluetooth connection. Connect this because the Canon app is spectacular. As you go to set this up, it's very intuitive. It takes you through each of the steps and it's really easy. The wrench icon, we have 5 menus here. Selecting a folder, you can create folders and name them however you want. I don't do that. File numbering is the same thing every time I shoot a video. It goes in chronological order, 1, 2, 3, 4. Every time I turn the camera off and turn it back on, it just picks up right where it left off. Auto rotate is on. Formatting the card is very easy. Please make sure that you back up everything before you format. Click on the format card, move over to OK. It'll format it and you're good to go. The mode guide and feature guide, I have the mode guide disabled. If I do enable it, every time I change a mode, that menu pops up and I have to half press the shutter to get rid of it or touch the screen. I don't want that, so I disable that. The feature mode guide I had disabled and enabled. I don't see any difference between one or the other. Once I figure out if there isn't an annoyance with this, I'll go ahead and disable it, but right now I just leave it on enabled. Nothing on this has changed. When you first turn your camera on, you have to set your time and language and all that, so that one's good to go. I shut the beep off on my camera. I don't want my camera making a whole bunch of noises, so I just disable that. Everything else stays the same. Shooting information display and the viewfinder. This has everything to do with what you see on the back of the screen or what you see when you look through the electronic shutter. I have mine set to 3 on this one, and I have my viewfinder also set to 3. I want to see a histogram and I want to see a level when I'm shooting video, just to make sure that I'm level and I'm not blowing out my highlights. My grid display is on 3 to 3, but you have multiple options. My histogram brightness I have on brightness, so it appears white in my viewfinder in the back of the screen. You can also change this to RGB, where you see the red, green, and blue scales. I just keep mine on brightness. Display size small. So the last menu on the wrench icon, this is where you can reset the camera. If you really get into this and mess stuff up, you can just reset the camera. I suggest putting your copyright information down here. It just embeds it into your metadata, so if anybody has it, they know who it's from. Custom icons, I'm going to go ahead and do a separate video on this one. And then the last page, your favorites. So if you're, just like I mentioned before, if you want to do something like a time lapse and you know you do time lapses frequently, you can put that on here so you don't have to get into the menu every time to enable it. That about does it. As you can see, there's a lot of crossover between this and the manual modes. So my next set of videos will dive into specific menu options. So I'll show you how to customize some buttons. I'll show you how to customize some of the functions. And then I'll go ahead and run you through the focus peaking and some of the other features on this camera. If you got value out of this, go ahead and give me a thumbs up, share it with somebody. If you're not a subscriber, go ahead and subscribe to my channel and click on that notifications button, because all the way through 2020, I'm going to be posting a lot of videos on this camera along with my regular content. So with all that being said, I'll see you guys in the next one.